nasa ano lang tayo, no? JS prom.
Nag-enjoy nga ako eh. Kasi nung high school
Super.
wala kaming JS.
Oo, pero meron kayong prom. Wala. JS talaga.
Nakalimutan.
Next, we have Mr. Robert and Olive Catan.
You're everything I try to find.
Strike a pose.
Your love is a pearl.
Oh, may pakulo pa si Tito. Uy, yung ibang Tito, gawin nyo rin yan. Magpakulo kayo ha.
Next in line, we have Mr. Dennis and Mrs. Ana Rochelle Fajardo.
Realize you'll always be beautiful in my
Ano na,
eyes.
kumarinig. Dito! Asa na po kayo?
I'll return and the seasons will change.
Next, we have Mr. Rudy and Mrs. Edna Gaela.
We'll be beautiful and strange. We'll have a fill of tears, our shared sighs, and my only prayer is that you realize you'll always be beautiful.
Next in line, we have Mr. Roel and Mrs. Angie Gomez.
You always grow in my eyes,
Roel!
and the passing years will show that you will always grow ever more beautiful in my
Next, we have Mr. Santi and Mrs. Jinky Fane.
Whenever lines upon my face from the light and six
Ay, kaganda!
and when the time comes to embrace for one long last while.
Let's all clap our hands for Mr. Dennis and Mrs. Sarah Hernandez.
How time really flies. You won't say goodbye. True love never dies. You'll always be beautiful in my eyes. You will always be.
Wow.
And presenting our next couple, Mr. Dennis and Mrs. Sarah Hernandez. Sorry, Mr. Egay and Mrs. Rose Hidalgo.
You will always grow ever more beautiful in my eyes.
Wow.
You will always grow even more beautiful in my eyes.
Wow. And now, let's have Mr. Tonton and Mrs. Liza Jamison. So it's very lovely, Jen, to walk with love songs, right?
Yes, with the love of your life, of
Yes,
course.
of course. That's great.
Our next couple, Mr. Winston and Mrs. Kelly Tajonera.
Remember so well the day that you came into my life. You
So So this is the time to reminisce their love life before, as they started.
Yes. Para silang mga pinatatong dalagang tunay.
Tama.
started to change.
Let's all say hello to our next couple, Mr. Jules and Mrs. JC Osorio.
With you right by my side makes me feel things will work out just fine.
Picture that, picture.
How did you know I needed someone like you in my life? That there was an empty space in my
Now, let's open the floor for Mr. Nelson and Mrs. Danny Panlaki.
in my life. I'll never forget how you brought a sun
pala yun?
to shine in my life and took all the worries and fears that I had. I guess what I realized.
How about Mr. Efren and Mrs. Lina Payong Gayo?
That someone like you comes my way. No words can express how much I love you. How did you know I needed someone like you in my life? That there was an
Of course,
empty
we
space
have Mr.
in my
Jerry and Mrs.
heart.
Linda
You came at
Flores.
the right time in my life. Whoa, I'll never forget how you brought a sun to shine in my life and took all the worries and fears that I had. I guess what I'm really trying to say, it's not every day.
It's now your time to shine, Mr. Chris and Mrs. Cecil Harris.
Can't express how much I love you.
Wala rin?
Kisses.
Kiss!
They have their fans club.
And we have Mr. Ruben and Mrs. Cecil Rala.
Ayaw? Masyadong ano? Maliwanag? Oo.
I need a lot of things I can get by with nothing. All the blessings life could bring, I've always needed something.
And now, quick weekend for Mr. Jeffrey and
Dapat natin yung ilaw.
Ana Marie Rosal.
You're my only truth. I need you like water, like breath, like a rain. I need you like mercy from heaven's gift. There's a freedom in your arms that carries me through.
So this is the moment you've been waiting for, Mr. Tonton and Mrs. Tonette Salgado.
Yun o! Ang galing magdala ng damit!
Sila yung service love ko kanina, Jen.
It's so amazing, this is just how you are. And I can't turn back now. 'cause you brought me too far. I need you.
This time around, let's offer the floor to Mr. Oscar and Mrs. Ruby Circulado.
Mercy from heaven's gift. There's a freedom in your arms that carries me through. I need you. Oh, yes I do.
Hey, may choreography.
I need you like water, like breath, like you. I need you like mercy from heaven's gift. There's a freedom in your arms.
Wow.
Carries me through.
Now, let's make way for Mr. Robert and Mrs. Carissa De Jesus.
I need you. Whoa, yes I do.
You know.
I need you. I need you.
Next, the floor is yours, Mr. Mel and Mrs. Jean De Torres. So let's continue enjoying the music with our titos. We have Tito Tom and Tito Mark.
Now we have Mr. Arnel and Mrs. Josie De La Cruz.
And this time, let's have Mr. Willie and Mrs. Mary Chris Jose.
I've traveled so far to change this lonely life. I wanna know what it is. I want you to show me.
Nampa na, Mr. Arnel and Mrs. Josie De La Cruz. Mr. Ferdy and Mrs. Irma De La Cruz.
Looks like love is finally found me. In my life, there's been heartache and pain. I don't know your face.
Next in line, we have Mr. Daniel and Mrs. Aurea Dizon.
Change this lonely life. I want you to show me sunshine. I know you can show
Make way for Mr. Larry and Mrs. Jenny Evora.
Mag-anak to ni Tito Albert.
This time, we have Mr. Lito and Mrs. Glo Cepeda.
You know?
This time I got lost all alone. There was a moment when everything seemed
Now we have Mr. Robert and Mrs. Zenny Pasqua.
Yes!
there was a place without promise, never gonna fall. After everything I learned, now it's finally my turn. This is the last time I'm calling in love.
Kiss!
Next, we have Mr. Percy and Mrs. Anna Tubas.
Stars that was moving.
Galing Manjela yan, ha?
I didn't need to ask for, even wonder why. Because it's questions, this answer.
And now we have Tito Alex Poblacion.
Rampa! Ikot to, ikot!
So imaginary part with his partner.
So don't
Flying kiss!
let me know.
Now we have Mr. Boyden and Mrs. Glover Santo.
Go away this long.
This time, let's have Mr. Sonny and Mrs. Faye Magno.
Yes! Rampa! Rampa!
There's only
Ano ba yan? Ano ba yan?
This time, let's have Mr. Don and Mrs. Marivin Flores.
last time
Open the floor for Mr. Bien and Mrs. Flory Maniago.
Daming fans.
Lamig!
Wow. This time around, let's have Mr. Kiko and Mrs. Nelda Solima.
Parang si Tito Jojo lang.
Wow. And now let's have Mr. Arnel and Mrs. Isa. Dumalanta.
Hindi prepare.
Now, let's make way for our chapter leaders, Mr. Conti and Mrs. Phoebe Enardecido.
Change coming. I feel the wind blow. I feel rain and daring. I feel my blood flow. And you, I can bring out all the love that I have. With you, there's a heaven.
And now our cluster heads, Mr. Rene and Mrs. Gigi Besteco.
So tell me, will our rise be away?
Okay, there we have it, titos and titas, the couples parade. Wow. So again, thank you very much everyone for participating. Thank you for showcasing the best in you.
Yes, ang gaganda. Ang
Sobra, ang gagwapo. Parang JS Provicana, right? And of course, Jen, we would like to thank our singers,
So,
Tom and Tito Mark.
thank you.
So kanina nakakatuwa, may dalawa tayong titos na kahit wala yung outer half nila, but still, they are brave enough para
Para rumampa sa ating...
tama.
Oo,
And
diba?
at the same time, nakakatuwang tignan yung mga couples na in their best look, nakarampa sila, and they're very sweet.
Yes, at gustong-gusto ko yung mga gumawa ng gimmick para sa mga asawa nila, ha?